Hi everyone, my name is Rihanna and I work at ASTOP, and today we are going to talk a little bit about technology safety. As you can see, ASTOP is also a sexual abuse center, so we are going to cover a little bit of information about that. As we're talking right away in the beginning, please be aware that we are going to have those conversations, so if at any time you feel uncomfortable or need to take a break, that is totally fine. You can go ahead and do that. Just kind of be aware that we are going to talk about some of those tough topics. So to begin, we're going to talk a little bit about ASTOP and our services. So ASTOP was started because back in 1988, there was an 11-year-old girl who lived in Fond du Lac. Her name was Victoria, and she actually died by suicide in August of 1988. When that happened, that was a really big shock to the community because back in the 80s, we didn't really talk about mental health. We didn't really talk about sexual abuse or any other types of abuse. And so it was a shock to the community that, this young girl had died. So an investigation was done. Police officers did the investigation and found that from talking to her siblings and neighbors and her parents, that there was not only physical abuse, but also sexual abuse in the home. And so when that came out, that this young girl had died by suicide because of the abuse she was suffering, the people in Fond du Lac, the community, wanted to do something to make sure that that didn't happen to anyone else. So they looked around, they looked at the community to see if there was anything out there for survivors and found that there really wasn't anything. So they thought of the idea of ASTOP to help those who had been affected by sexual abuse. And now today we can help people in Fond du Lac County, Green Lake County, and Waushara County, all for free because we want to make sure that everyone can access our services. So in the gray circle here, you'll see our logo. Just as a heads up, that's what our logo is. And then in talking about our services, they are all free and confidential. So that means that, we have the same confidentiality that's important as it comes to like medical records and things like that. So first up on our list here is case management. So case management is when someone comes into ASTOP and they meet with our case manager to get different resources in the community. If there's something that we do not provide, like housing or financial assistance, our case manager can help that person find those resources. We also then have counseling, so our case manager will refer individuals to a counselor after they complete the intake with her. So 2 counselors at ASTOP, and they serve kids as well as adults. We actually start to see kids as young as 4 years old, all the way up into adulthood. And it could be because something happened really recently, or maybe for our older adults, maybe something happened earlier on in their life and they are just now able to talk about it. We do serve people in that way. Next, we have our crisis line. So that number is listed there, the 920-926-5395. And that is a 24-hour hotline for people to call if they're struggling with things related to sexual abuse. So if someone were to be having a trigger or a nightmare because of the abuse that they've encountered, we can help them through that moment. They can call our phone number. There's always someone there. When we say 24 hours a day, we truly do mean 24 hours a day because we have volunteers that help us out. So we have quite a few volunteers that receive training, and they are there to help the staff, which we only have about 8 people on staff. So we're kind of a small staff, but that's where our volunteers can come into play. Next, we have legal and medical advocacy. So legal advocacy, you guys might think of a courtroom with the legal side of things, and you're right in that sense. We are not lawyers and we can't provide legal advice, but we can go with people if they have to go to a court hearing or they have a trial because of their sexual assault. If it's court proceedings related to sexual assault, then we'll be able to go with them and help them through that. And then we're also able to go with people if they have to report an assault to law enforcement. So whether that's the police department or the sheriff's office, we can go with people when they make those reports. And similar to our crisis line, we also do have volunteers that help us when those calls come in on nights and weekends for both the police reporting and then the medical advocacy side of things. So the medical advocacy side is when people are going into the hospital and normally the emergency room because they've experienced a sexual assault and are going to get a SANE exam. So SANE stands for Sexual Assault Nurse Examination, and that's when they are going in to get evidence collected, like forensic evidence. You might have heard of this before in TV shows or things like that, referred to as a rape kit. That's when they're collecting that evidence. So it's a specially trained nurse, and their job is to collect evidence and possibly use it in a later court date. That can be really overwhelming for an individual, so that's why we send an advocate along. And like I said, our volunteers help out on nights and weekends, and then we do have full-time staff members that will respond during the day. Next, we have prevention education. So that's what I do. Some of you might remember me from coming into your school last year, the year before, even the year before that. So in the past, we've talked probably about our services, maybe safe and unsafe touches. You might remember that with like the early warning signs and the gingerbread person. Maybe you remember talking about consent, or just like I said before, ASTOP services. So we do all of that. We also start our education at age 4, kind of like the counseling services. And then we will provide the education up through elementary, middle school, high school, college, even community groups. So different residences with like groups of people, so like group homes, or maybe it's like a jail or prison. Maybe it's a business that wants to receive information about us. So really anywhere that people would like us to go and provide these informational presentations or these educational presentations, we can do that. And then last on our list here is our support groups. Those are for individuals who have either experienced sexual assault or maybe they're close to someone who has, and it's our job to kind of help them heal through that by providing a safe group environment. So we have a women's support group, a men's support group, a teen support group at a couple different locations, and all of those run with either a counselor or an advocate running them kind of throughout the year depending on the interest. So lots of information here, I know, but those are our services. You might remember talking about those in the past, but they're important to remember that we have this resource right here in your community. So next, we are going to do kind of a little bit of a survey. So you don't necessarily have to pause this or anything, just kind of think to yourself, yes or no for these questions. So how many of you have a cell phone? So whether that's a smartphone or a non-smartphone, how many of you have a cell phone? How many of you have a different technology device? So maybe you have a tablet or a computer that's your own. I don't know if people still have iPods, touches or not, but that too would be, one of those different technology devices. How many of you have a social media account? So this would be Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook even, things like that. How many of you game online? So like gaming with other people where you can interact with other people. And how many of you have easy access to the internet at home or at school? This should be everyone, especially with our virtual learning lately. We know that you guys a lot of times are doing either blended models or hybrid models, or even being completely at home. So you do have that access to the internet, whether at home or at school. So next is a little bit of an activity for screen time. So you've probably heard people talk quite a bit about screen time and how you shouldn't have too much screen time and there's limits on screen time. I want you guys to kind of take a look or even think about it. What's your average device usage? So in 1 week, what's the average amount of time you spend using your personal device? So I have an iPhone, so this is why I know this little trick here that you can go to your screen time report within your settings and check your total screen time. So otherwise you can kind of calculate it. I gave some guidance down there. 0 to 20 hours would maybe be no more than 20 hours per day during the week, and then 5 hours a day on the weekends, and so on and so forth. So go ahead and calculate that. If you need to pause to do that, that's totally fine. You can go on and do that. All right, so while we were all kind of looking, I also looked, and for my screen time last week, I'm recording this on a Friday, so my screen time from last week was 55 hours. So that is not something that I'm necessarily proud of, but I fall, almost in the second to highest amount. I will argue that sometimes I do work from my phone, so I am in charge of posting on our Facebook and Instagram for ASTOP. Also, if there's emails or things that I can do on my phone, I will argue that some of my phone was used for working. But yeah, I'm curious to know where you guys fell, so maybe share amongst yourselves for a little bit, kind of where you're at and what you think that means, and then we'll discuss in a bit. All right. So, like I was saying before, there's a lot of talk about screen time and, what that means and whether or not that's good for development. And, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to come in here and scold you guys for using your computers a lot or your phones a lot. But this too was your personal device. So, I was assuming that you guys were looking at your phones. When you take into account how many hours you're on with your computer, that's probably even more than that, right? If you're on your computer for school or things like that. So I did a little bit of extra calculations. So of these hours, we have 168 hours in a week. And let's say you guys get an average of 8 hours of sleep and you spend about 7 hours a day during the week at school. That leaves you 77 hours of the 168 hours to eat, hang out with friends, spend time with your family, do your homework. And if some of you guys are at the 60 plus hours, either you guys aren't getting enough sleep or you're not really paying attention in school. It's cutting into those other times. So it's just kind of interesting to look at that. Again, like I said, I'm not here to scold you depending on where you're at because times have definitely changed, especially with it getting colder when it's the winter months. You can't really go outside as much. The daylight is shorter and things like that. But keep in mind that excessive phone use or device use can contribute to, eye strain if you're talking physical health, but then also constantly being on social media can sometimes lead to different mental health things, different stress things. So just be aware of your screen time and kind of make those good decisions to make sure that you're feeling comfortable, you're getting everything done that you need to get done regarding homework or other responsibilities that you have. All right, so moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about a digital footprint. So I have a video for us here. We'll go ahead and watch that.
The idea of, posting and having a lot of people see it can definitely be kind of scary.
If you're a teenager, you're gonna make bad decisions sometimes.
They can screenshot it, they can do so many things to save that, and they can edit it in ways that you won't want them to.
Whether or not you think it'll go away, it's there. Anything you post online, you're stuck with.
Oversharing to me is putting too much of your personal life in front of a wide audience of people.
Posting something for the sake of showing that you're there and maybe not because you're actually having that great of a time.
Posting about things that people don't necessarily think are significant, but they're just kind of posting to be posting.
What you share and how often you share is going to affect the way that somebody views you. Just because I'm going to post all the time, that doesn't mean that you're going to get all the attention. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to like you.
For example, people have like Finstas or spam accounts where they just like post random stuff, and sometimes they get too personal with what they're talking about on there.
Things that are meant to be texted one-to-one, people tend to post online so 50 other people can see their plans for tomorrow or the next weekend. You could be doing something like that could potentially endanger yourself by making your account public and saying too much about where you live or who you are.
When I'm in like a cool location and I want to show everybody where I am, but most of the time I'll just tag where I am on like a Snapchat story so people can know.
So once you put something online, it can be there forever because people might take screenshots, they might record it, they might save it.
I don't think people don't realize that it's gonna be there forever. I think they just don't care. A lot of people have this mentality of like, what I'm doing is very insignificant. Why is anyone gonna care about this?
You should be cautious of what you post. You don't post your pictures and think like, okay, nobody's seeing me, nobody's screenshotting me, nobody doing nothing, because people doing that, you're just not gonna know.
Your Snapchats, despite the fact that they only last, 4 to 8 seconds, they're still there. Your Instagram stories that go away after 24 hours, they're still there.
Anything that is posted, anything that's up, no matter what happens, even if you leave it up for a minute and take it down, it's there as soon as you put it up there.
No one's going to scrutinize everything that you say the same way that you might.
You are not obliged to post every second of your life in order to please what you might seem as the majority of people. So when you feel like you have to post all the time, when you feel like you have to do this in order to get fame and attention, you don't. It's not your job.
That's something you always have to be thinking about. What do you want people to remember you on social media as?
All right, so to follow up a little bit about the video there, some things that we want to be thinking about. What's the primary reason that you guys are posting? So again, you can take a minute to pause and kind of discuss amongst yourselves. What's the primary reason you guys post, whether that's on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or wherever you guys are posting? Okay, so I know in the video, one of the guys kind of mentioned like, oh, when I check into a cool place, I'll put it on Snapchat. So are you posting because you want people to know like what you're up to? You want to share with friends and family? I mean, there's lots of different reasons that you might post. You want to get a lot of likes. I mean, it might seem kind of silly to even say that because we shouldn't care about the number of likes, but it does matter to some, right? It does make us feel, better about ourselves if we get a lot of likes on a good picture, things like that, if we make people laugh. So lots of different reasons that you might post. But do you guys agree with what the students were saying in the sense that people know that their posts could be seen by anyone, but what they're posting is very insignificant? So do you guys agree with what they're saying about people recognizing that their posts are public or not? So with that, it could be both sides. Some people might be fully aware of the fact that their stuff could be seen by lots of other people, and they do agree with what the students are saying, that what I'm posting is insignificant and no one's screenshotting me, no one's paying attention to what I'm posting. On the flip side, maybe you guys didn't realize that your posts are public, right? Or that some of your posts might be public depending on the privacy settings that you have. So what are your guys' thoughts on posting all of the time? Like, do you think it's annoying? Do you think it's normal? Do you not really care? So in my opinion, I think posting all the time has definitely shifted. When I think back, 10 years ago, 2010, people were posting on Facebook like multiple times a day, what they were having for dinner, what they were doing next. You would post in a list on your Facebook status, going for a walk and then feeding the dog and then mowing the lawn. And like you would have all of these different things on your Facebook because I think people didn't really care and it seemed like small stuff. But lots of people also mentioned in that video before that you do have to be careful about what your post contains, whether it's, geographical information, where you live, where you go to school, because if you're posting too much information, people could get that information about you, and maybe they're people that you don't necessarily want to have that information. All right, next up, does what you post now affect your future? Do you guys think that that's true, false? What are your thoughts? So if you guys said yes, what you post now affects your future, I agree with you. If you said no, I have another video that might change your mind a little bit.
We live in an information age, and many people post comments and photos daily on social media. If that's you or someone you know, you should know about a new survey.
Yes, 60% of employers say they check a person's social media background before hiring, and what you post could prevent you from getting a job. Pat Foran has the story on Consumer Alert.
The new survey from Career Builder found that 60% of employers will not hire someone until they research how they appear on social media sites like Facebook and Twitter. The findings are similar to a recent study by Workopolis, Canada's largest online job board that connects companies and job seekers. Marcia Ford says many people don't realize what they put on the web is often there for everyone to see.
You would be surprised at the number of people who don't put the restrictions high on their Facebook profile, allowing almost anybody to see the details of their social media life.
Workopolis found 63% of companies check social media before hiring, and 48% of companies saw something that caused them not to hire a person. The reasons were posts about excessive drinking or drug use, profanities, racist or sexist comments, suggestive, provocative photos, and negative comments about previous employers.
Once you put something out there, it's very hard to take back, and also people forget to take it back.
The surveys also found some employers like what they find on social media. It can tip the balance and actually help you get a job. Reasons employers did hire someone after checking Facebook and Twitter included posts about community and charitable work, athletic accomplishments, appearing kind and compassionate, and having a professional image. Ford says whether you're looking for a job or not, always think before you post.
Be professional today, be mindful of what you're posting, because it will have an impact on your career if you don't.
And many employers are turned off by a person if they look angry in their profile picture. They're more receptive to someone who appears kind and smiling. So a picture is not just worth 1,000 words. It could help you get a job, too. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
All right, so maybe that helped change your views a little bit, maybe not so much. But what's important to remember from that video is, yes, they pointed out things that employers are looking for that would definitely hurt your chances of getting a job. But on the flip side, they also showed things that would be helpful for you to get a job. And you might not be thinking about a full-time job quite yet, but keep in mind, right, things online can pop up even after the fact. We've seen it with football players and with, celebrities, things like that. So just, again, be aware, be smart with technology. Have a good balance. No one's saying you can't, have fun with your friends, but be aware of what you're posting. If something's really silly or something, maybe wouldn't look so great online out of context, just don't post it. And then, have a good balance of things that, maybe you are giving back. Maybe you are an athlete. Maybe you do work a part-time job and you share that. Like, that kind of stuff is okay. Just have a good balance of what you're posting. So being smart with technology, it's more than just don't talk to strangers, right? We've kind of evolved past that. You guys know that you shouldn't be talking to strangers online, but also making sure that what you're sharing is appropriate. You're not sharing things, pictures of other people without their consent. You're having a good balance of what you're posting to appear professional, or having good settings up to make sure that not everyone can see everything that you're posting. Grooming for human trafficking often takes place online. So you guys might have already heard about human trafficking, but a lot of times that people are being kind of scooped up or met online with a trafficker because of the different grooming that takes place. Maybe they appear to be an attractive human, kind of like catfishing, like we've talked about, I'm sure, before. And so posting too much personal information can show vulnerabilities. So if you're posting that you can't get a job and you have really bad grades and you don't have any friends and nobody likes you, the traffickers are going to be able to pick up on that, and they're going to kind of swoop in and say, oh, well, I think that you're a really great person, and all those other people are just silly for not wanting to be your friend, and I bet you're really smart. And, as I'm saying these things to you guys right now, it might seem kind of like, well, I would never believe a stranger online if they said that. But what if they were a friend of a friend of a friend? Like, you think that you maybe know them, or maybe you don't necessarily start out talking right away, but they're liking your posts and commenting, and then slowly it turns into a personal conversation. We just have to be aware of those things. So technology is a tool. We want you guys to use it wisely. Be careful with what you're doing. Technology has proven to be very, very helpful. Switching to virtual schooling and how things have really changed in the last 6 months and so. But you still have to be aware that there are people who are using technology for not safe things. We have another video that we're going to watch, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some other things.
Oh, yeah.
How does it work?
Okay, well, it's pretty simple, really. There's no secret to it. Basically, you just go in, go to the places where people like to go, on the internet, and you pick someone.
Oh, we're just friends, but he's so cool. I mean, we talk all the time. He's on the JV football team, and he's in that science club that I've been wanting to get into, so, and we have some mutual friends.
Also, you have an instant level of trust, so there's a mutual friend that you can clue in on.
So I haven't seen him around, but I think we might have bumped into each other a time or two.
Once you get them to connect with something familiar, it's all good.
He's a really cool guy, and he's super cute and really funny, and we like all the same movies.
Everyone wants to list their favorite books, their favorite movies, their favorite places to eat. So you clue in on those, and you can instantly find some common ground with someone.
I'm really excited to meet him.
What next?
Well, once I have her hooked, I just have to reel her in.
He says it's a surprise, so who knows, but either way, he said we're gonna have a ton of fun tonight.
Promised her we'd have some fun today, so I just wanted to show her how much I like her.
It's gonna be super fun, and we're gonna probably just get to know each other and, go out, so it'll be fun. I'm excited.
Okay, so that was a little bit of an exaggeration. That's, obviously wasn't real people, it was actors. But stuff like that truly does happen in the sense of, getting to know someone, and maybe they ask you to send some inappropriate photos, things like that. So talking about sexting. So sexting is a form of sexual exploitation because it is against the law for a kid to send or receive nude photos, but there might be pressure to send those photos or videos or messages and things like that. So there are serious consequences for sending those nude photos or soliciting them, so also known as asking for them. So we need to be aware of that. You guys probably already know that it is illegal. It's against the law for a kid to view or look at those photos. And if you do, you are either viewing or distributing child pornography, and that's a serious, serious crime. But if someone's trying to coerce you into it or trying to get you to do it because they know some other information about you, I hope that you guys know that you can always report that. And that's probably the most important thing to take away from this, is that if someone's trying to get you to do something inappropriate, even if they already have some, not so great information, it's important to stop it right there and get help from an adult. So who are the people that you guys can report to? So, whether it's cyberbullying, harassment, or even suspected trafficking, maybe you know that a friend is talking to an older person online and their conversations get a little inappropriate sometimes. Who are the people you guys can talk to? I'll let you, pause for a minute and kind of discuss those options. All right, so I hope you came up with some of these, but you can report to the app itself. And that's something that's important for everyone to know, is where the report button is on Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, things like that. A lot of times it might be listed as report abuse, but you can either, report the person, block the person, delete the person, but you should also talk with someone even if you report it. So you can talk to parents, other trusted adults like aunts, uncles, grandparents, things like that, your teachers, your counselors, a police officer, your school resource officer, especially if it's suspected trafficking. We want you guys to talk to police because, they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to take care of that. So always remember to talk with your trusted adults no matter what, when it comes to cyberbullying, cyber harassment, sexual harassment, suspected trafficking, things like that. So to finish up, like we said before, technology is a tool. You need to use it wisely. And we know that you guys are going to be using technology. We know that you're going to be using social media. And we're not here to say you can't. You just have to make those good decisions when you're using social media. Don't share too much information. Don't talk to people that you don't truly know, and always report if something seems unsafe.